From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? Let's rock and roll. It's showtime. It's Wake Up War Chant, part of the WarChant.com family. Follow them on Twitter. War Chant. One word. You know how to spell it. Ultimate Seminole sports source. I'm Aslan. Corey Clark joining us as always. This time from lovely Buford, Georgia. Corey Clark, how are you, friend?
I'm good, buddy. I'm always good. You know that. Just living the dream.
Okay.
Breathing air.
You know, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah. We got the second half of the Renegade Express. Do I hear those horses rumbling down the prairie?
Not yet.
Sorry.
I drive. You're the brains. You bring in all the ratings. I drive, though.
My fault.
Stay in your lane. All right, plenty to discuss. First off, I guess let's just start off. So Jalen Hurts is not an option any longer. Jalen Hurts committed to Oklahoma on Wednesday afternoon via the Players Tribune. I did not read his send-off, but best of luck to him. I think the Players Tribune is just absolutely ridiculous, but hey, more power to them. They want to eliminate us from the cycle. Go for it.
That's cool. So
he's not coming to Tallahassee. I guess we can kind of dovetail that into a slight, I don't want to say blip or a mild panic attack, I think, set in for some Florida State fans when a story came down also on Wednesday afternoon before the schedule came out. We'll get to that soon enough. But that James Blackman had reportedly entered his name into the portal, the transfer portal, that is. I think at some point later on in the day it might have been clarified to he's planning on putting his name in the portal, or he is undergoing the process of putting himself in the portal. Best explained to me, courtesy of our own Ira Schofel, 5-star Schofel, who did a really thorough column on the transfer portal that's on warchant.com. It's not like a process. You don't like fill out a piece of paper and then it goes to one person who then stamps it and then sends it to another office. Like, you basically go to compliance and you're like, yo, put me in there. I want to see what's out there for me. So at no point, as of the recording of this program, has James Blackman issued or instructed, rather, Florida State University to put his name in the portal. So his name has not been in the portal. And again, as the recording of the show, it has not been in the portal. So that's it could change. He could wake up on Thursday morning and have slept on it and been like, you know what, I do want to leave, but we don't know the discussions that happened or what led to this even being rumored that he's thinking about doing it. But he hasn't. So I guess your mind can go in a lot of different directions, but Panic Pete's here to tell you to not panic. Okay?
Yeah, man. Well, that's a refreshing change of pace, the whole Panic Pete. Yeah, I just like that you said portal. You must have said portal 6 times there in about a 65-second span.
Okay.
I like that. I like that we call it the portal and not like database.
All right.
Like somehow portal is taken over. Like it's you've cracked a schism in the universe, and you can portal into another dimension.
Yep.
So that's cool. I like portal. I think that's a cool word, much cooler than database. But yeah, it's how
ridiculous is this, Corey? We're at the point now where kids haven't even put their name into it. He's considering it or he's thinking about it. I mean, we're going to be at the point now where it's like kids say portal and it's going to be news. It's like, oh, no, relax. He bought his uncle a Facebook portal for Christmas. He's staying.
It's going to become a verb.
Yeah.
Like how many Seminoles do you think portal next year? It's going to become that. Like how many Florida State players do you think are going to be portaling to another school next year? How many portals did Oklahoma get?
Right.
That's essentially what it'll be. It's going to replace transfer. It's just portal. I'm going to portal to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
When it comes to Blackman, look, like
it's bad. If he does it, it's bad, Corey. It's that hurt me, man. I hurt when I heard that.
Well, and like if it's a possibility, if he leaves, look, I just think you look at it from his perspective. You sit behind a guy that you whatever. You sit behind a guy that didn't play well and maybe isn't universally beloved. You play one game and you number one, it's a guy that you're on senior day 2 years before or a year before, wasn't even there. Not the best teammate, that's well documented. Didn't play great in 2018, obviously. Other than the refs, he kind of, with a couple bad turnovers, he cost you the Miami game. And then you play one game all season and throw for 400 and something yards. You don't get to play again. Then you think, okay, well, it's opened up where I'm going to be the starter in 19 because he's moving on to either, different pastures or the NFL or, the CFL, wherever he'd end up being. And then you read that, oh, no, he's coming back. Well, if you're James Blackman or if you're a family member with James Blackman, if you're a parent or a friend, you're like, man, are you gonna fight DeAndre Francois again for the quarterback battle and lose again, and then another year goes by where you're backing up him? You're not backing up Jameis Winston, you're backing up DeAndre Francois. Well, maybe you want to see if there's other places you can land. I mean, I think we all understand that, right?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
So I don't begrudge him looking for another opportunity if that ends up being the case. I also think, man, to me that would be sad because my man is a straight Seminole. And I'm telling you, I don't know if I think I talked about this on the show, but I don't remember. After the Miami game where he played exactly one play and all the Miami players are celebrating on the field after the win, James Blackman almost gets in a fight with five Miami football players. He's having to be restrained because they come up to him or screaming in his face, including the really good defensive lineman they had. Gerald Willis.
Yep, correct. Yeah, he's a peach.
Yeah, there you go. So it was like 4 or 5 guys in his face walking to the tunnel. He's giving it right back to him and almost having to be restrained because he's so upset about whatever they're saying, obviously, and I'm sure they're saying stuff about the fact that he didn't play and about his university and that they blew it and yada yada. And he wants to go at him. That's how much he was upset by what had happened. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't run this program, quite obviously. I just think if you had to choose between the two, and I think I'm speaking for a lot of fans here, not that I am a fan, but I think I'm speaking what a lot of fans feel. If you had to choose between the two to be your quarterback next year, you would want Blackman. And, but again, it's not that Blackman is worlds better than Francois, quite obviously, or he would have played more. It's just that if they're even or close to even, wouldn't you want the guy that bleeds garnet and gold? Wouldn't you want the guy that is a great teammate, that his teammates want him to chase down purse snatchers? Because he's that, even though he's skinny, he's just got their back. I just think that's a guy you need in your program. And I think it would be, not an enormous loss necessarily, not like, let's say, Texas A&M losing Kyler Murray, but it's a loss if you lose a kid like that because you need people like that in your locker room. And I'll leave it at that. We don't know how this plays out. If he leaves, if he even enters his name into the wondrous portal. But I think James Blackman is a guy that you need in your locker room. And it would be bizarre if after the 2 quarterbacks they had to choose from, it ends up being Francois that stays on this roster and not James Blackman.
And, I don't know if you mentioned early in your response right back there, but, also, some of it could be the fact that not only, do I have to battle DeAndre Francois again, but it's, we keep hearing that you're looking at grad transfer quarterbacks. Who am I? What am I, just chopped liver? So a little bit of it could be some sort of, I don't want to call it ego, and I want to stop saying I don't want to say it after I then say it. There's a lot of things in play, but ultimately what you can't deny, and this is the tough thing for Willie, is that just the simple fact that it gets put out there, and it's not fair to Willie because, again, he didn't put his name into the portal. Again, as of this recording, he might change his mind Thursday morning, at which point then it becomes a real problem. But say like it never happened. Say he wakes up tomorrow, he's like, Coach, we're good. I spoke to whomever. We talked last night. I felt good about what you said to me. We're good. Let's do this. Let's get it. Let's get a championship, whatever. And then this is completely a moot point, but like the genie's out the bottle, and this is a program coming off a 5-7 season with a quarterback that necessarily hasn't ingratiated himself all that well to the fan base, and everyone was ready to say goodbye to. It sounds like the coach was even ready to say goodbye to. And he's like, actually, no, I'm going to stick around. And then the perhaps presumptive usurper of that throne is like, actually, you know what? I'm gone too. It just, with everything that's going on right now, it'd be rather unfortunate to hear that be the reality that he wants to leave. And if you want to be the ultra sort of, admonishing person, like how can you say he bleeds garnet and gold if he's thinking about leaving? I mean, I guess a little bit that's fair. But I mean, I guess at a certain point, again, if Francois is going to stay around and they're not giving you any sort of encouraging signs that, they're going to process him through, then, I mean, you should be able to look at what's best for you in terms of the options. That's why they did this whole portal thing. But again, who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But for right now, I don't think we should panic. I can't see him sitting, nodding and agreeing and sitting last year to keep the red shirt just to come and not win the job here. If it's like, all right, you're going to red shirt me, why wouldn't he put his name in the portal in October when they told him, like, listen, it's Francois in 18 and he can stay here as long as he wants? Like, why wouldn't he have put his name into the portal then? That's kind of what
I mean, and again, it's hard to even speculate. It's just hard to say what's going on behind the scenes, if it even happens. Again, I think not a lot of it, but part of the reason that people are panicking, not you, Panic Pete, but other ones, is look, you're still waiting on a staff to be named. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Miami just had a 3-year head coach quit, went and hired back a guy that had just left, and their staff seems to be complete. And they just got a transfer from a former 5-star that's leaving Ohio State. Meanwhile, you hear 8 hours later that there's a chance the quarterback that you want, and again, I'm speaking as I'm assuming a majority of Florida State fans, the quarterback you think is going to be your starter, he's thinking about putting his name in the portal so you can watch DeAndre Francois again. Like, there's no good news coming for this program right now. It's just piled on top. Why aren't we announcing other head coach? Why aren't we announcing other assistant coaching hires? Some people have their whole staffs complete. It looks like Florida State's just going around. Okay, well, what's the deal with Dugans? What's the deal with Clements? What's the deal with this guy? Is Buckley coming? I guess not. What is McGriff coming? Like, why isn't any of this stuff happening? So I get where, like, and then you hear, okay, well, then there's also a quarterback, the guy that's the fan favorite, not the other guy. But the fan favorite guy is thinking about transferring or portaling. I can understand why there's people that are, not really fired up about what's going on. I mean, it was bad enough from August to December was bad enough. And now January has been kind of a kick in the groin too. So at some point you think things are going to turn around and good news starts coming. But right now it seems like it's a lot of bad news. And I think James Blackman leaving is bad news. Again, he is not a Heisman winner, but if I had to choose between those two guys, I just do not understand why my choice would be Francois. I just don't. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I've watched that kid play enough. And if everything's even, you want to go with the guy that people like more. I mean, that's just to me anyway. And I can't imagine how you can look at these two guys and say it's not even. But, again, I don't watch practice, as we pointed out yesterday. Right. Francois just might destroy him in practice. And if that's the case, you got to go with the guy that's better. But, man, it's just, Florida State, like I joked about last week, Francois treated him coming back, that tweet that he made, like it was Justin Herbert. And everybody was going to be, oh, God, or Andrew Luck. I can't believe he's coming back for another year. This is awesome. Yeah. It ain't that. Florida State fans, many of them, most of them, whether it's fair or not, rolled their eyes and shrugged their shoulders like, oh, all right, I guess. And now you think that decision might propel the quarterback that you want to see play go to somewhere else. That said, what is the market for James Blackman?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what his market is. He ain't going to Miami. They just got the 5-star kid, and it's not like he's proven a ton.
And he has
I
no
don't even
leverage.
know how good he is. So I don't know what his market is and where he'd want to go. But I also understand frustration if it looks like he's going to have to sit behind 12 another season.
And the thing is, he really has no leverage because he uses red shirt. So I mean, he's not a grad. Unless he finishes this year, I guess he could hustle up and try to get his a degree. This will be his third year, and then maybe transfer as a red shirt. He'd be a redshirt junior when he arrives somewhere else on to another campus. But I mean, yeah, if he doesn't get his degree in a hurry, like he wouldn't be eligible for 2020 if he leaves. So I don't even know how sort of practical this move is. And again, it's a move that he hasn't even made. It was suggested by somebody that had a source that he's planning on doing it. But again, as a recording of this, he hasn't done it. And there's so many other questions I could ask right now, but let's not get bogged down with that one, Corey. Let's talk about the future, the schedule. It was released. First off, do you remember how long ago? It seems like there were 2 bye weeks in the Jimbo Fisher era. I want to say, like, there was at least one season where I felt like there was multiple bye weeks, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, has that happened before?
I feel it has. I feel like it has been.
I mean, I know they've had a couple of Saturdays off in a season, but I always thought that was because they were playing a Thursday night or a Friday night. But yeah, just straight up 2 weeks off, including one before the Florida game. Really, you get 2 weeks off because before that you play like Alabama State or somebody.
Correct.
Is that right? Is it Alabama State?
You're right.
I should probably know who they're playing. Then yeah, man. I mean, I guess that's a good thing that you get essentially 2 weeks off before you play Florida. But yeah, I mean that's not bad to have 2 weeks off. I think that's where you're going with this season anyway, or with college football, especially if you're going to make some of these teams play 15 games. You need to give them a couple of weeks off, but that should be good news, I would think, for Florida State. I don't think it matters. I know a lot of people on Twitter and on the message boards were happy that you had a week off before Clemson. Man, I feel like you should play Clemson 2 days after another game. Like, it just does not matter.
Yeah.
You could have 6 weeks off.
You
could have 2 years off. You're not beating Clemson at Clemson as long as Trevor Lawrence is healthy. But, but still, it might come at a really good time. It looks like you definitely want to be healthy for Florida. And in the middle of the season to have another one, that's good stuff, man. That's you can't. I know Florida State fans, like every fan base, likes to complain about schedules and getting screwed by the conference, but I don't think Florida State fans can have any gripes.
No, I think actually, Ira mentioned it. It seems like it's one of those rare consensus things that most fans are like, okay, I actually do like it. I like the way it's laid out. I like the 2 bye weeks. I mean, if you look at it this way, Corey, you've got 5 games and then the bye week and then Clemson, obviously. Those first 5 games, it's Boise and Jacksonville, home against Louisiana Monroe, at Virginia, home versus Louisville and NC State. You could be 4-1. Worst case, probably, I don't know, maybe 3-2 coming out of there. I think we've obviously put a large emphasis on the Boise State game. Like, if you lose that Boise State game, it feels like the wheels could come off. But you're going to stem the bleeding by having Louisiana Monroe the following week at home, so you probably win that one. If you lose Boise, maybe it lingers on the road at Charlottesville and you lose at Virginia. But then you're back home and you're going to play a 2-10 Louisville team. First year coach and Scott Satterfield. They're rebuilding. They could be a game opponent, but we'll go ahead and say that's 2-2. And then you got NC State without Ryan Finley. Worst case, you're 2-3. If you're skeptical, Aslan, you're 3-2. But you also have a realistic chance of being like 4-1 after that. Then you get a week off. Like, the way that sets up, I think, is nice. You have the off week, then you have Clemson. That's a loss. At Wake, it's Snuggy Hill. You got to respect them. Then you got Cuse, Miami, BC, and then another practical bye week there with Alabama State. Talking to Ira about this, we both feel 8-4 is likely or reasonable. Let me ask you this. If 8-4 doesn't include a win over Miami or Florida and obviously Clemson, is that enough to make? I don't want to keep jobs, but is it enough to feel good about the direction of the program?
I mean, do you lose to Miami like you lost to them this year, or do you get housed? Same with Florida. Like, if you lose to Florida 31-30, sure. And if you lose to Miami 28-27, sure. It's not going to be a feel-good season if you lose to both of them. and obviously you're losing to Clemson. So, you've lost to your 3 rivals. It's not great, but again, you're looking for any positive momentum, right?
I would think so. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'm like 8-4. I was talking to Ira. I'm like, dude, 8-4 is actually going to be pretty good. And then he kind of was like, hey, it is, but where are those 8 wins? Like when you think about it, like if your 8 wins are, I don't know, it would be like Boise, Monroe, Louisville, NC State, Wake, Cuse, BC, and Alabama State. If those are your 8 wins, that's, ugh, I mean, that's not quote Florida State football.
Can you do that though? Can you go when you're just coming off 5-7? You got housed by Syracuse. I mean, I'm not.
Well, you're out of. The you're no longer a doormat, but you're mediocre.
Yeah, exactly.
Now.
You what they go this year in the conference? 2-6, 3-5. Like, if you have a winning record in conference, which is what that would mean if 2 of your losses are
3-5.
I guess you'd at least be 500. But no, I guess you'd have to have a winning record. That again, it's baby steps. It's not a giant leap forward. But if you go 8-4, I don't really think it matters how it looked. I mean, no, let me check that. It does matter how it looked, but if you're not getting just obliterated by Miami and Florida, I think you're okay with 8-4, as long as it looks like you're competent and you're well coached, which obviously it did not this past season.
It's just hard to imagine that with Kendall Briles at the controls, that this offense is not going to be able to, I don't know, just outgut NC State and beat them at home and find a way to beat Boston College on the road. But again, I mean, the way I looked at it again, Corey, Boise, Monroe, at Virginia, home Louisville, home NC State, week off. Like those 5 games, all manageable. You come out of there, let's say 3-2, maybe 4-1. But after that bye week, at Clemson, at Wake, home Syracuse, home Miami, at BC. That's a tough 5-game stretch, I think. And especially like the Cuse, Miami, at Boston College stretch right there. Like those 3 games might dictate just how good we feel about the program going into 2020. I think Cuse, Miami, Boston College, you could come out of there 0-3 in that 3-game stretch, and 1-2, and maybe be content. I find it hard to think that you're going to go 2-1 in that 3-game stretch. I really do.
Yeah, which kind of says where this program is. But again, we don't know. I mean, it's what are we 10 months away from that? A lot of things can change. Jalen Hurts might change his mind and end up coming to Florida State, and then that you got to recalibrate everything. Am I right? But lying. Yeah, so again, I just think I don't know that you can just poo-poo an 8-4 when the depths that this program has reached the last 2 years. If you show any signs of being competent again and getting back on track and turning an 8-4 season into the following year being 10-2 or 11-1, okay, well you just need any momentum. I know you want to beat Florida and Miami, but you'd rather go 8-4 than 5-7 with 2 of the wins against Florida and Miami. I mean, you got to get back. You got to start getting back to bowls. You just got to stack wins together, man. If you're Willie Taggart, you obviously want to beat your rivals, and you don't want to get embarrassed by them like they were by Florida.
Duly noted, Corey. You're right, man. You got to start stacking some dubs. So just last thing, I mean, just initial impressions though of that schedule. I mean, I guess you just think, or at least I think, NC State, Syracuse, in Tallahassee, both those teams lose their quarterback. Louisville obviously going to be in the midst of a rebuild. It's early on. The 2 bye weeks, I think, again, those first 5 games, I think, if you end up 4-1, you're going to feel really good about yourself. And it's not even really beyond the realm of possibility that Florida State's 5-0 if Kendall Briles is everything he's been at his last, his whole life. 5-0 is a definite possibility. But ultimately, looking at that schedule, Willie Taggart has to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely fair. It's certainly easier than the one he was indoctrinated into the ACC with. But that nobody was done any favors with that thing. That was a bear. But yeah, it's fair. You got 2 bye weeks before your 2 of your 3 biggest games, and yeah, it's 8-4 is certainly doable. They have to get much better, but that's the plan, right? You're supposed to get better in your second year. So if they make the noticeable improvements, the necessary improvements, yeah, 8-4 is certainly fine. And yeah, man, I mean, heck, you look at that. There's, other than the fact that they're not used to winning, there's no reason this team can't be 5-0 after those first 5 games. There's just, you got it again. That's something you have to fix. But you've got players on this roster that aren't used to winning, which is weird to say about Florida State football, but it's the truth. But if they can get used to winning, 5-0, Francois leading the Heisman race.
Ooh,
I don't see how this doesn't happen.
Well, and again, I lied. Maybe last thing, the Boise game I don't think is nearly as daunting with the way the schedule sets up. So I think even if you lose that, I still think you can rebound, and maybe you still quote limp into the bye week at 3-2. I don't. It seemed like to me like if you lose that Boise game, it just felt like if that schedule was laid out in a different fashion, like maybe if you got Miami in week 4 or whatever that Florida State had them in 2016 when the season was on the precipice, it could have really gone wrong for them. But the fact that game is buried at the end of the schedule, you have the bye week. It actually doesn't matter where the bye week is before Clemson. That's an auto loss. Again, I just think this schedule has mitigated just how important that Boise State game is. Still important for fan psyche and stuff, but I don't think it can torpedo the season the way I did 2 days ago before I saw it laid out.
Sure, but still win that game.
Yes. Do that. All right, Corey, do you hear something in the horizon?
Buddy, I thought I heard it about 9 minutes ago.
Yeah, you got that hearing, man. You got that really strong.
Yeah, I heard it way off in the distance when it was coming around the mountain.
All right, let's go. Let's do it. It's Renegade Express Part 2. Ran Z, 4D Knowles. Love the show, fellas. I live in Pearl, Mississippi, which is in the vicinity of a temporary home of the famous Aslan, the home of Pete the Pirate. That's right. Pearl, they're the Pirates. Pete's their mascot. Pearl, I like Pearl. It's also the home of the Mississippi Braves, the AA affiliate of the Atlanta Braves.
Isn't that where Monte Ellis is from, the
yes,
NBA player?
Yeah, Monte Ellis is from Jackson. Look at you, Corey. Dude, that's strong.
I went and saw him when I used to work at my former stop, or one of my former stops. I went and saw him play a one of those high school super-duper games against Lewis Williams, who's the sixth man of the year in the NBA. They played against each other. I think Monte Ellis had like 48. Lewis had 42. It was something.
Corey, I get the fact that an NBA player sends you Christmas cards and everything, but we all know him as Lou Williams. No one knows him as Lewis.
It's crazy, man. I can't stop it. I can't. He was Lewis Williams the whole time I covered him. It's weird to call him Lou now.
Man, that's what
it's like people that probably covered Joe Theismann in high school.
Yes.
And all of a sudden they got to be like, oh, Joe Theismann. Well, that's not what I know him as. He's Lewis or Lou Dub. Yeah. Sometimes I call him Lou Dub. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough about that.
Oh, somebody, by the way, said that I pronounce especially with an X. I
thought they were talking about me.
No, I thought they said it was about me. I'm like,
what's
next?
Either way, one of us pronounces it especially.
Well, what's next? They're going to say that it's not the specific ocean? I mean, come on. Figure it out, people.
For real, right? I got you. I hear you.
Fix your speakers. All right, his question is that since we do not have a viable option at quarterback as of right now, Francois won't run. Blackman looks like a newborn baby giraffe when he runs, and the transfer not immediately eligible as of now. Would it be at least worth trying to let Cam Akers play a little quarterback, especially if LeBourne comes back healthy? Browse also has a history of playing other position players at quarterback. That was a question. What say ye, gents? That's not a tenable situation, like having Cam be your quarterback. Cam Akers didn't come to Florida State to play quarterback. He came here to run for 1,200 yards 3 years in a row and then go to the NFL and get drafted in the first round. Not saying that he's not a team guy, and I just did it again by not saying and then saying it. They could definitely use him more. They could run more Wildcat stuff. I mean, that's what he ran in high school. That's what he broke all the records in Mississippi doing. I don't know why that there was such a reluctance to let him run out of that. I know you're telegraphing it when you line up in there, but you're helping yourself and giving yourself more numbers and more hats on blockers or more blockers on defenders. Like, why not do that? Maybe Kendall Browse will be more willing to pull the ripcord on something like that. Maybe Walt Bell wasn't, or maybe he was and Willie didn't want to do it. That's another one of those no good explanation things from last year with how much this team struggled, not putting Cam back there more, just not even to throw the ball, but just to run out of that formation. And then do it and get successful a few times, and then, you can throw from there because he can spin it pretty decently.
Yeah, I feel like you went 9 weeks without doing it at all. from the Virginia Tech debacle to the Notre Dame game. And then the Notre Dame game, they did it, and he ran 12 yards for a touchdown or whatever that was. That was one of their best plays of the year. I do think that'll be on the table. I think they'll do that some, and they might do it with DJ Matthews too, or who knows, anyone. But yeah, that's not the long-term solution. And I wasn't even joking about it last year. At one point last year, I don't remember what game it was, where Francois literally looked like he was just bathed in mud and glue. He could not move at all. I'm like, this is preposterous. Just put an athlete back there that can run around and make not just the offensive line can't block for a statue, and let Cam Akers run the ball 30 times out of the Wildcat. And I bet he'd run for more than 2.8 yards per carry, but they did not do that. But I don't think you don't bring a new coordinator in and the whiz kid and give him the offense to just do some high school Harry stuff. Yeah. But I do think it'll be something that you do a little bit for sure.
I will say, I think, maybe 7 quarterbacks Kendall Briles has coached since being an offensive coordinator. Like this past year, he had De'Aaron King. At FAU, he had Jeff Driscoll. I think Jeff Driscoll ended up – was it not Jeff Driscoll? I think it was one of the Driscolls. It was Jeff Driscoll's brother, whose name escapes me right now. Then he had Bryce Petty in Baylor. He also had –
Is it Jebediah? Is that the other Driscoll?
Yes,
Jebediah?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bryce Petty, Jarrett Stidham, Robert Griffin III, and then Seth Russell. Like, all those guys I just named were all dual threat-ish quarterbacks with the exception of Bryce Petty and Stidham. Like, Stidham could run, but, like, if a healthy Francois is probably on the same level as Stidham. I don't know where James falls on the spectrum there, but he mainly has had guys with wheels be quarterbacks, but he's also had a really good run with Bryce Petty as the quarterback, and Petty did not run the ball. I think he might have averaged like 30, 40 yards a game. I don't know if he ever had more than 1 or 2 games where he ran the ball more than 8 times. Don't quote me on that. But all the other guys, yes. Every other guy that he's had in his systems have been guys that you do have to account for as running quarterbacks. But, Stidham was thrown in there late action because I think actually, was it Seth Russell? I think it might have actually been Seth Russell who got injured. And he kept the team honest and all that kind of cliche stuff, but nothing extremely amazing in terms of mobility and agility and speed. So I think if he'll figure out a way to make one of these guys good, and I think that's maybe why a lot of folks, maybe not a lot, but there's a certain part of the fan base that's like, well, Francois, maybe one more year healthy with a little bit of a better offensive line and with a guy like Kendall Briles drawing up and dialing up plays could actually be a pretty decent little weapon. But I think that same thing applies to James Blackman, and James Blackman's just not going to create heartache for you the way that maybe DeAndre will. Are you wrapping me up right now? Are you just playing the wrap-up box up there for me, Corey? Tell me to wrap it up? Like, wrap it up, Aslan. Next question.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So
what's Brady doing?
I Googled. Well, I didn't Google it. That's the problem with this dumb computer. I used another search engine, and I clicked on the Baylor rushing record for the bowl game.
Okay.
Where they ran for 645 yards in the win over North Carolina, right. And they did that with their third-string quarterback.
Okay.
So again, that's not a bad idea, right? I mean, that's not a bad. If you're a Florida State fan, that's pretty encouraging. That with their third-string quarterback, they got a guy in there that could run the ball. And that's what they did. Like, they just said, all right, we're just going to run it. We're going to have a mobile quarterback, and we're going to run it. And it's ridiculous that North Carolina gave up 645 yards rushing. But that's what happened. And as I got to that story, a commercial. It looks like an Olive Garden commercial. I can't even tell what it was, but
nice.
That was some pretty sweet music. So I apologize to our listeners, but I was actually trying to do some research.
No, fine, man. Bryce Petty's last 2 years – his junior year, he ran for 209 yards on 94 carries, and his senior year, he ran for 101 yards on 84 carries. However, he had a combined 20 touchdowns those 2 seasons.
Okay. All right.
So maybe when they get in the red zone.
Florida State fans could live with that.
Yeah, I mean, you get in the goal line, those guys, maybe you can create sort of some running lanes for them down in the red zone, tight zone. But yeah, I mean, those averages are 2.2 yards per carry and 1.2 yards per carry. And that was 13 and 14, and Baylor almost snuck into the playoff in 14. So those are some of the prime seasons of Baylor Bryles football, and it involved a quarterback who was not the next Charlie Ward. So
correct.
There's that.
And I just clicked on one of the plays from that game against North Carolina. And a kid named Johnny Jefferson, who I admit I've never heard of before, who ran for 299 yards in that game, I don't think he's the quarterback, but he takes a wildcat snap and runs 80 yards for a touchdown.
Okay. I like it.
So, again, that's certainly in their repertoire.
Yeah, we like it. All right, next question, or else we're going to be here until Saturday.
Yeah, let's go. Let's pick it up. Pick up the pace.
Maxwell Gibbs, knock if you buck, boys. What are your thoughts on FSU moving up 2 spots in the poll? Well, you asked something about basketball. What were your thoughts on Florida State moving up 2 spots despite losing on Saturday? I thought that was kind of nice.
We talked about that yesterday. It made sense, right? Plus,
right.
A lot of teams around them lost.
Yeah. All right,
so
that's why it happened. Now time for some fun. You both get the opportunity to record a podcast with any personality or media member of your choice. Who are you choosing? I'd love to see Corey do something with Stu Gotts from the Levitard Show and Aslan with Pablo Torre.
Oh, all right. So they have to just be ESPN personalities or just...
Well, anybody. I'll go first. I am going to go with ESPN, though. Ryan Russillo. I am a extremely destitute, broke, poor man's Ryan Russillo. That's the way I try to live my life. Russillo's the man. I love Russillo. He's totally dry, but he's so well researched. Like, he knows his stuff. He legitimately reads back and forth, up and down about everything. I mean, the things that he cares about, which is basketball, NBA basketball, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do like it. But he's also a pretty big college football fan, and he knows his stuff. So his sense of humor and everything. He's 42. He's jacked, and he laments about the fact that all of his friends are far away, and he's not married. So he's kind of that's who I probably will end up being if things don't work out with this one I'm with right now. So I like Ryan Russillo. I would love to do a podcast with him.
Sure, and chances are it will work out with who you're with right now. But if it doesn't, you got a fallback plan, and that's to be a poor man's Ryan Russillo.
Yep.
I guess if we stay in that same vein, I would say Van Pelt. I do like him. I think he's maybe one of the more normal people that do TV. He just seems like somebody I would go hang out and have 5 or 6 beer Mick Ultras with.
Yep.
But I also, and not to keep it basketball related, but I really like Steve Kerr.
Oh yeah, Steve Kerr's awesome. Good call.
And I don't know a lot of people know his story, but his dad was I think he was an ambassador.
Yeah.
In Lebanon. I can't remember what country
Beirut.
He was in.
He was in Lebanon.
Was it Lebanon?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got assassinated. And then if people that don't know, I can't remember the name of the organization that took credit for it. Golly, it's not going to be a good...
Might have been Hezbollah.
Do what?
Hezbollah?
No, it was PLO or something.
PLO? Palestinian Liberation Organization.
There you go. But that might have been Patty Hearst. I can't remember. But let's, for the sake of this story, say that it was PLO. Anyway, when his dad got killed, he was still in Arizona. Or maybe it was just before he'd gotten to Arizona. But anyway, this happened, I think, his senior year at Arizona or his junior year at Arizona. And let's say that PLO was the organization that assassinated his father. While he was warming up before a game at Arizona State, while he was warming up, so 20 minutes, 15 minutes before a game, the Arizona State student section starts chanting PLO.
Oh, no. What?
I'm telling you. I remember it when it happened. And then maybe a couple years ago, I remember the story when it happened. I was 13. And a couple of years ago, I was like, man, did that really happen? Maybe when he won his first title with the Warriors. And I went and looked it up on the internet. And yeah, it happened. The Arizona State fans started chanting PLO while Steve Kerr was taking warm-up shots. And, I don't know. I would love to talk to him. I don't know how often he's talked about that since. But just, as a 20-year-old man that lost your dad, though in such a violent way, and then to have dumbass college kids mocking you for it, how do you not run into the stands and just start waylaying people and get Sean Elliott and all your buddies to go in there with you?
Ooh.
And what does that tell you about humanity if anything, all that stuff. I would just love to talk to him about that. I just think he's a fascinating person.
Islamic Jihad took the credit for that. They were a precursor to Hezbollah. And according to the LA Times, yeah, man, March 1st, 1988, the byline, shouts of PLO, PLO, your father's history, and why don't you join the Marines and go back to Beirut, by a small group of students, caused Kerr to sit down for a few minutes to regain his composure. Holy
I mean, that's the worst of us.
goodness.
When it comes to sports fans, and hopefully everyone listening to this show obviously knows that there's never a reason to do anything like that, and hopefully the people that did that, they're all, some of them might be grandfathers by now, or grandmothers. Hopefully they understand how awful that was, and have, I don't know, reached out to them or just learn from it. But yeah, every time I see Steve Kerr, I remember that story. And it just, as somebody that, I mean, I lost my dad too, but it wasn't violently. But I can't imagine somebody mocking me losing my dad because they cheer for another team. Like if they're, a 247 fan, that they would mock my dad being dead. So the fact that he overcame that, obviously, and had I don't know what kind of game he had, but he had a great season. And, he's a really smart dude. He cares about things off the court. He'd be a fun guy to hang out with.
Kerr, a fifth-year senior, made all 6 of his shots from three-point range and finished with 22 points as he led number 3 Arizona to a 101-73 victory.
Suck on that, Sun Devils.
That's a
Hope
dude.
you left at halftime.
What a dude. That's fantastic. That's awesome, man. Way to stick it to him. All right, next question. Candy for Knowles. Good morning, gentlemen. Enjoy the show, although my now 14-year-old does not listen with me as much as he used to. Sorry. He goes everywhere with those darn earbuds in his head. I hail originally from Merritt Island, Florida, home to Will Purdue and Clint Hurdle, as well as Jimmy Black, Leon Bright, and Waldo Williams. They came to FSU in 1973 with Eddie Feely, who led Merritt Island High to their state championship in 72, then went to coach at FSU for 1 year in 73. Feely also played quarterback for FSU from 59 to 62. Well researched.
All right, that's a lot of information.
All right.
Will Purdue, a great college basketball player.
She also adds, and Eric Roberts Rudolph, also born in Merritt Island. Take the good with the bad, I guess.
Oh, Eric Rudolph, the bomber?
I don't know. I've never heard of Eric Roberts
Yeah,
Rudolph.
Eric Rudolph is the guy the Centennial Park bomber that blew up abortion clinics too.
Oh,
and
wasn't
caught,
Richard
years
Joel
later,
didn't
living,
do it?
Eating out of a dumpster in the Appalachian Mountains or something.
I didn't know that. Poor Richard
there you
Jewell.
go.
All right, so the question. Man, we're getting really sidetracked. Sorry, buddy. There was some complaining earlier this week that we only had one junior leaving early for the draft, but I swear weeks ago there was complaining about how FSU had too many kids leaving early for the draft. Granted, most of those because they shouldn't, and now there's only one who really can. Isn't it a good thing, though, that some juniors who probably would have left early if this was 17 are staying around? The stream of early entrants since 2015 has really drained this team. Well, you talk about taking the good with the bad, Candy. I think the fact that you don't have a lot of guys leaving early means that you don't have a lot of high-level talent that's ready for the NFL, so that's a good thing because they're going to stay and try to develop and get better, but it's also bad because they're not as good as the gold standard that was here 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want a roster full of juniors that have the ability to at least declare for the draft. Florida State does not. I know Dontavius Jackson said he wasn't going pro. That's like me saying I'm not going to date Jessica Alba. Like, Stephanie,
yeah,
I just want you to know I'm not going to date Jessica Alba. I'm not going to date Scarlett Johansson. Any of those folks, I'm deciding not to pursue that. To me, that's kind of where we are with Dontavius Jackson. I don't know that he was even on the NFL team's radars. I don't know that he's an NFL linebacker. So him saying he's staying, same with Levante Taylor, really, with the season he had. Those don't feel like it doesn't feel like Peter Warrick coming back after the 98 season. Yeah. I don't know how draftable those guys were. And that, to me, is the bigger issue, is that you really only had one guy that was legitimately draftable as a junior. And 4 or 5 years ago, you had a roster full of guys. So, not a roster full, but 8.
Who is, I guess DeMarcus Christmas might get drafted. Otherwise,
maybe.
who else is getting drafted?
Hey, man,
I don't think
I don't know.
Derek Kelly's probably got Derek Kelly's physical is probably not going to be the best. Yeah, I don't know about Nooney. That's crazy when you think about it. They might have only had one guy that okay. Anyhow, next question. Oh my gosh, this is a long one. This is like 6 paragraphs. Austin.Harris14, good morning. Listen to my first episode of the podcast last week as a recent subscriber to War Chant. I am not as familiar with you, Aslan, so I do apologize, but I am a very big fan of Corey's after being an avid listener to Seminole Headlines. I know this is a different show, but I was first introduced to Ira and Corey during Headlines when they were role-playing as Clint Trickett, Jameis, and Jake Coker in their quarterback
And
battle.
I won that one, baby. I won that battle.
We all know how that turned out with a rapid rise and an even more abrupt demise. All right, here we go. My question to you guys is, do you really think Clemson has lapped us that much in the depth of talent the last 3 seasons, or does it all mainly stem back to our starting quarterback post-Jameis? We went from Jameis to Everett Golson, Sean McGuire, DeAndre Francois, and James Blackman. Jimbo also seemingly put most of his eggs into the Malik Henry basket, who can barely get a walk-on chance at Nevada now. And that's not like a funny joke, everybody. That's Malik Henry's reality right now. He walked on at Nevada into a 6-man quarterback race. Meanwhile, Clemson went from Deshaun Watson to Trevor Lawrence and are their favorite to land the top quarterback out of next year's class as well. How, after winning 29 straight games and putting quarterback after quarterback into the NFL, was Jimbo not hand-picking quarterback recruits? He'd most likely still be here if he hit a home run at that position post-Jameis. I understand you can't expect an NFL quarterback every cycle, but Dabo was able to use Bryant as a seat warmer till his main guy came a year later. Isn't like our 13-14 run was littered with NFL offensive line talent. Well, actually, they all got a cup of coffee at the minimum there. Just as you don't see Clemson's O-linemen dominating the NFL either, the biggest distance between us and Clemson is the NFL first-rounders playing quarterback for them. Do you agree?
I do not, because, again, Clemson got to the playoff with Kelly Bryant, who might start at Missouri. I mean, I don't know. That guy isn't anything special at all. And they were so good around him, it didn't matter. And I don't think – I also would say this. I think if Kelly Bryant had been the quarterback this year for Clemson, they still get to the playoff, and they probably still beat Notre Dame. Because what did Notre Dame score? 8 points, 9 points
3,
in that game?
Thought. Was it only 3?
So they still probably get to the championship game, even with Kelly Bryant as their quarterback. Now, I don't know if they beat Alabama. Maybe they do. I don't know. But, again, ask yourself, if Florida State had Kelly Bryant this past year, would they have gotten to the playoffs? I think quarterback is a part of it for sure. It's odd that the pipeline just ran dry completely. It's like Kentucky all of a sudden not being able to recruit point guards. It doesn't make sense that Florida State had such a lull with quarterbacks with what Jimbo's accomplishments were. But there's more to it than that. Clemson could get to the playoffs with Kelly Bryant. They could win a conference championship with Kelly Bryant. Florida State, they would have had no chance with Kelly Bryant. They would have been just what they were the last 2 years. I think the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmages, and just overall talent everywhere, it's a discrepancy. It's not something that's going to take 8 years to fix if it's done right, but it's certainly just watch the NFL draft the next couple of years and the last 2 years, and you see the difference in talent. But it's not something that can't be overcome.
Excuse me.
Agree or disagree, Aslan?
I'm going to kind of agree with Austin, even though he likes you more than me.
Well, Austin's a smart kid. We know that.
I think we sometimes have a propensity to overlook just how tough injuries are. If DeAndre doesn't blow his knee out against Alabama, for a while there was a lot of us that thought if he doesn't go down, Florida State still probably ends 2017 at 10-2, maybe 9-3. And then if Jimbo doesn't leave, who knows how good maybe Francois could have been in 18. And listen, I know that O-line looked terrible and all that kind of stuff. But maybe part of it was learning a new system, and maybe it was square pegs into round holes and things of that nature. It is plausible that DeAndre Francois had the trajectory of a very good college quarterback, but when he blew his knee out, that that and losing his quarterback coach and head coach and offensive coordinator really just put him into something that he couldn't recover in time. It's who's to say that Jimbo and DeAndre wouldn't have been able to kind of keep that 10-win thing rolling.
But I guess my counter to that,
but that's not
true.
what Clemson is.
Losing
Clemson's
DeAndre cost them wins in 2016 for sure, and I think it affected the whole mindset of the team having a true freshman at quarterback. But my counter to that would be, does DeAndre Francois strike you as a Jimbo Fisher quarterback? Like mindset-wise, personality-wise, leadership-wise?
Not really.
Yeah, that's the odd thing to me, is that he was even on the roster to begin with. That he was the guy that was being groomed, quote unquote. And maybe DeAndre Johnson was the kid that he had his eye on, really.
Yeah.
And then the incident happened at the bar. But it just all of the quarterback recruiting was just bizarre. Malik Henry, Jimbo wasting half a minute trying to convince that kid to come to Florida State is just bizarre. Like, you go from a Christian Ponder and an E.J. Manuel and a Jameis Winston type, just the way their mind, just who they are as people, as students, let's say, quarterback students, to those two, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and you wonder what was going on there. So that's always going to confuse me, is how his quarterback depth chart ended up like that. And J.J. Costantino, let's not forget him. And what a just waste of time that was. But yeah, I do think that, yes, if Francois, that probably changed the whole trajectory of his career, getting hurt obviously, and maybe he would have been like an ACC quarterback, ACC first team quarterback at Florida State in 16. I don't know.
17.
Well, no, I mean in 16 before he got hurt. If he wouldn't have gotten hurt
in 17.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so 17. So maybe he would have been first team All ACC. But we've seen enough of him, I think, to realize that was going to be a weird marriage. That was an odd combination, those two people, Jimbo Fisher and DeAndre Francois. Right. And would he have gotten it? Would it have clicked? Would he have become the teammate and the leader that Jimbo wants his quarterbacks to be? I don't know. Yeah. There's nothing that leads me to say that, yes, he would have. So I think there was always going to be a ceiling with him. And, again, quite frankly, your offensive line is just disgusting. And so there's always a ceiling with how good your offense can be. And so I Clemson, you watch that Clemson Alabama game, Lawrence never got touched. Yeah. Even on 3rd and 12, when they know that's where all their big plays came from, was 3rd and long, and they knew that Alabama knew they were passing. They still couldn't get to that kid. It's just it's just a big difference, and it's more than just a quarterback.
Speaking of, Alabama's defensive coordinator is going to probably go to Cleveland. I think he actually might have already taken the offer by the time you're listening to this show to be the D-line coach for the Cleveland Browns. And Alabama's probably going to reach back and hire the guy that was their co-linebackers coach in 17, this guy Pete Golding. He took over at Texas San Antonio, and they were something like 105th in the nation, I think, in total defense in 2017. And then last year they were 7th. Like, where are those guys? Like, where are those? I mean, that's like Jeremy Pruitt was. Like, how many? Like, we need one of those guys. I think Kendall Browse is that guy on offense. We need one of those guys on defense too. But we got to go to the next question, Corey. I lured you into something. You were ready to go on that one, but you can't.
Well, I was just going to say, you don't know anything about that Texas San Antonio roster. And I do. They hit some home runs in that recruiting cycle a couple years before, and those guys are loaded on the defensive end. He just walked into a great situation. That's all.
Okay. All right. I like the way you think, man. That's a very optimistic way. But, yeah, just like that's Alabama, man. Like, Alabama's going to end up getting that guy to come back to Tuscaloosa. I should actually check out
this ain't Wake Up Crimson Tide.
Heisman with a Z20, Tallahassee born and raised. If you don't know who's famous from Tally listening to Wake Up War Chant, you ain't better call somebody. That's how you spell it out like that and everything, I promise. When I was 13, I attended two-a-days the summer before 9th grade, and Antonio Cromartie, 19 at the time, lit me up. I promptly went to JV practices the next week. What's the biggest moment you got jacked up or saw someone get jacked up Also, do you think Willie has asked Ham to borrow Gray or Cabangeli at right tackle?
Gray would be great, man. Gray's got great feet and can move.
Great bend.
He'd be like Big Baby Davis, man. That kid could play left tackle for 10 years. That's funny. So he must have gone to Lincoln, obviously, if he played with Cromartie. I'm trying to think of getting lit up, like watching it live. Heavens to Betsy, I don't know. Like the Greg Jones. Oh, I guess I was there when Stanford Samuels sent Roscoe Parrish to the hospital. That counts, right?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, there you go. So that's my number one. I wasn't at the Greg Jones one. That's still the all-time best. I also saw there's that famous photo of Marvin Jones where he's just leveling that Miami running back on a screen pass crossing running back screen pass in the 92 game in the Orange Bowl. Yeah. Tamarick Vanover in that same game got absolutely destroyed by one of those great Miami linebackers. I think it might have been Armstead, but I'm not sure. But he got lit up, and that was one of the harder hits I've ever seen too.
By the way, I saw it on a tweet. I can't confirm UTSA had a top 10 defense. I definitely know their total defense was not top 10, so I take back everything.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me with the roster they had.
Yeah.
Loaded.
Biggest moment I got jacked up, probably sometime playing hockey, because I was so small and I was a terrible skater, so I would just you just breathed on me. I went down like a sack of potatoes. But
was the question the biggest time we got jacked up?
Yeah, so what's the biggest moment you got jacked up or saw someone get jacked up?
Yeah, I mean, I never played like organized football. I did play in my yard, and so we had a game.
Don't, Corey, no. Don't.
What?
I'm just kidding.
This was going to be, we had a game where, I'll just say we had a friendly game in high school where it was tackle football. And he's a buddy, he's my best friend. He was then and he still is, but he blindsided me with a block that was, that I still remember. Yeah. So I got jacked up then, if that counts.
Yeah. I'm so locked in on this Texas San Antonio thing that I gave out that I can't.
I also got hit in the testicles playing baseball once when I was batting.
Yeah, they were horrible. They were 3-9 last year. They surrendered 52 points to UAB and 45 points to FIU. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't ever listen to me. The biggest thing.
Man, I told you that they don't have much talent on that roster.
Biggest time I got jacked up was senior year homecoming at this girl's house. She had boxing gloves that like the guy we would usually put on just like screw around. But there was this kid, Ricky, who was our starting running back. And he was probably like 6'1" and 210 pounds of granite and concrete. And he lit me up. Like we boxed and I might have tried to throw like 2 punches at him. And then he proceeded to land like 15 within 5 seconds, and then I went Apollo Creed and like just clenched him like ain't gonna be no rematch. That he lit me up like a Christmas tree. But it was like it wasn't a hostile
thing. Why did you do that?
Well, I mean, I was a little drunk, man. It was high school homecoming. I had a couple drinks in, a couple girls there. I'm like, let me flash the jab, showing them all about. It's Ricky.
How'd that work out for you?
Well, you gotta go after the big tree if you want to chop it down and impress the ladies. It didn't work out well. I was humble.
Is that a saying?
I don't know, but it was.
You got to go after the big tree if you want to chop it down.
I don't know, but the thing is,
that sounds like a bumper sticker.
I had nothing to lose and everything to gain because I was for as like thin as I am.
I mean, you could have lost consciousness.
He would have. We were friendly. He wouldn't have done that to me.
Oh, okay, all right.
But I mean, I literally probably weighed 140 pounds and was probably like 5'10", 140, and he weighed over 200 pounds, and he was the starting running back at our high school. So, like, if I stunned him, I'd be, like, the biggest dude ever. And if I didn't, it's like, all right, it's Aslan. Of course he's going to get lit up by Ricky. I mean, Ricky could take, like, 3 guys out at the same time. That's it. All right, moving on. SPF 10CO. That was the guy that already asked about basketball. He's from Louisville. Shout out. Doak FSU 1. Good morning. Baseball question here. How do you foresee the pitching rotation to shape up? Seems like we have some good young arms for a solid rotation. My hometown is Kingsport, Tennessee, home of Pal's Restaurant. If you've never been, you're missing out.
Okay. All right. Well, next time I'm in Kingsport, I'm going to roll into Powell's. I would say
pals, like buddy pal.
what is it? Palace?
Pal, like my buddy, my pal, pen
Oh,
pal.
pals. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought you said Powell's,
No.
like the cop in Die Hard.
Okay.
I would say Drew Parrish is your Friday night guy.
Ooh, yeah.
CJ Van Eyck, however
Ike.
we want to pronounce that, is your Saturday guy. And then Sunday's up for grabs. I assume Pollock will get a chance at it. One of the freshmen will get a chance at it. But yes, they definitely have one of the best 1-2 combos in the country with those two kids if they stay healthy. Those two guys can really pitch.
I don't know how Drew Parrish is going to bounce back from what happened to him last season.
He'll be fine. He'll laugh it off.
I don't know how he's going to do in the regular season, but I feel like no matter what happens, they make the postseason and they put the ball in his hand. I feel like he's going to throw like a gem. Like, I don't know how it's going to work out in April.
Kind of what he does, though. He's really good.
Yeah, like I don't know how he's going to do in April and May. But man, watch out if he gets into like a regional. I still trust that kid. I still think I don't have any reason to think he's not going to be lights out this season as a senior. He is a senior this season, right? Or is he a junior?
Well, you talking about Parrish?
Yeah.
Yeah, junior. But it's his last year.
Right. Yeah, I got all the confidence in that kid. I still think no matter what, even if he struggles for some reason in the regular season, I think when it all matters the most, that kid will step up. It's just the way he's programmed. I feel good about it. Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple other guys that we should probably throw out there for, the number 3 guy in the rotation. But, yeah, I think, Pollock's probably a good one. Who's the other kid that was from, like, Tampa, another lefty? His name escapes me right now, which is not a good thing.
You talking about Brian Bush?
No. It's another
Sean
Connor
Gilmartin?
Connor Grady.
Well, I think he'll be. What they got to do is figure out who the reliable relievers are.
Kwiatkowski.
If you go to a weekend, you're going to get 16, 17 innings out of those two starters. You got to get maybe that's too much. I should say 14 innings out of those two starters. You got to figure out where those other outs are coming from and get some reliable guys that you can depend on because they're both. I mean, that's the reason Parrish went out there.
Yeah.
After a 3-hour rain delay,
2.5 hours.
They didn't have lights. They didn't have anybody they could really depend on, definitely depend on coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah. No Billy Strode back there. No Billy Strode back there.
True. Or Chavez.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you still got like Jonas Scalar. I still think. I mean, I know he doesn't throw hard, but I feel like he can get you some outs. Clayton Kwiatkowski, I thought played pretty decent towards the end of last year. If he can build off.
Yeah,
that.
he can pitch, and also J.C. Flowers is somebody to watch.
Yeah.
The center fielder the last 2 years. He's got a good arm.
Yeah. Iowa Knoll 1. Good morning from snowy Iowa. With baseball season around the corner, look at that, back-to-back baseball questions. What are some things to look for this season besides the obvious 11 farewell tour? Does this team have the talent to make another run to Omaha? Yes.
Yes, the team last year did too. Baseball's a funny sport that way. You have a couple bad games and the season's over no matter how you played the first 60. I would say they've got 2 freshmen that should get everybody really excited. You might want to look up their roster.
Nander Desadas.
There you go. So he was, for people that don't know, he's a shortstop, a pretty big kid too. Yeah. And before last season, before he started his high school senior season, he was thought on some blogs to be the number 1 overall prospect. Like he was talked about as being the first pick in the entire draft. Now he had some health issues. He struggled a bit with his bat as he got scouted more, and he ended up obviously not being the first pick in the draft because why would he be at Florida State if that had happened? But he has some serious talent. So you have that kid, and then you have another kid named
Elijah Cabell.
Elijah Cabell.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so that guy, they think I talked to Mike Martin Jr. about him briefly. He said, the way he talked about him was like somebody he'd never, a type of talent that he had never coached before. As far as his pure strength, the way the ball jumps off his bat, the way he can run. He's not a huge kid. He said he's kind of built like Mike Trout. He said he did not compare him to Mike Trout, but he said he's built like Mike Trout. Maybe the ball jumps off his bat like it would a Mike Trout. The guy just has unnatural power. And that's somebody that will probably bat 3rd or 4th in their lineup as a true freshman. So those 2 guys are somebody that I think you could get really excited about because those are 2 guys that could be future major leaguers, along with Mendoza, who you hope takes that next step from being good to great. You might have and Reese Albert's kid or Albers.
Reese Albert. Hey, that's what the animals count. Yeah, Reese Albert.
That's
Cooper
right.
Swanson.
The ball, he can hit too, man. The ball jumps off his bat, and he can go get it in the outfield. So they got some major league type prospects in that lineup. They just got to figure out some bullpen depth. But I think the Cabell kid, the two freshmen for sure are going to be guys worth watching.
Nander. I guys call him Nander.
Nander? Are you saying Nander?
Nander, like Evander.
Like Dander with an N.
Correct.
Nander.
Desaidas.
Okay, got it.
Who's going to play catcher now that Cal Raleigh's gone?
Is Cal Raleigh left? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that Jonathan, was it Cooper kid, the Auburn transfer?
I mean, you would think that's what he's here for. You wouldn't think he transferred here to sit, but I don't know. I didn't ask him about that. Did you ever look up that kid I texted you about the other day to see his status? No, I don't read your text, man.
Next question, Get Down Black. Hey, wake up! I'm from Carroll City. Few notables include Rick Ross, Flo Rida, Santana. Care about Santana Moss on this show. Stanford, Boozy Samuels, Willie Jones, Octavius Jackson, Bradley Jennings, Donald Heaven, and to name new guys, Brownlee and Ray, all from Carroll City and Carroll City High School.
There you go. Donald Heaven. Hadn't heard his name in a while.
There you go. I think Carroll City High School is also home to the great Willie Williams of lobster and steak.
There you go.
And
gotcha.
Fire hydrants and fire alarms. Anyhow, I've just been wondering, with all these lawsuits against Willie, do you think some of it is trying to push him out of FSU? I don't know, let's say someone. I'm a big Willie supporter, so I hope that's not the case. What are the chances that he gets pushed out for the lawsuit? It's a good question. That's a prescient question almost that I don't have really a good answer to. I would just think that this is something they can sit on.
Great. I don't think the chances are great that he'll be pushed out because of that. It's also not a great look to have your coach in the middle of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit pertaining to what training regiment, training habits. But yeah, no, I don't think that's an excuse. Now, if he goes 1-11 next year, it could be something nice to use, I guess.
I don't know what I would imagine. They can't sit on it. Like, listen, if he went 5, if he went like 5-7, 6-6, and then this broke on January 2nd, going into his third year, then I think at that point maybe they can trigger it, because he has to have some sort of like moral turpitude clause or just something in his contract. Every coach has it in their contract that they do stuff that embarrasses the university or brings upon sort of bad imagery onto the university, the employer. They can get rid of him, and that's for cause, which means they don't have to pay him any of the money left on his contract. I mean, I guess lucky for him, it happened in year 2 where they're not going to probably explore that sort of nuclear option, if you will. I just don't know how practical or like what the statute of limitation is for them to, because listen, if Willie goes 12-1 this season or 11-1 and he loses the lawsuit, which I think it's a civil lawsuit, it's not a criminal lawsuit. They're not going to be like, well, you know what, you were found responsible for hurting these kids, we're just going to have to let you go. No way that happens. So the fact that they could then use it, like, I don't think you can't use it when you go 4-8 either. Like if they were going to act on it, I would think they would have to already act on it. So I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to come back and haunt them. But I do know that Ira is talking to folks in the legal field to see what they know about that lawsuit and what it could lead down to. But at this point, it doesn't seem like it's anything that's going to affect his employment status at the university.
Agreed. Hey, can you hold on a second so I can go pee?
Is that what we do? We'll be right back after this. You're listening to Wake Up War Chant. Actually, I lied. This is a very good point for us to stop the program because we're about an hour long. We'll finish up the Renegade Express, for you guys tomorrow. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you then.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.